Hi everybody, thank you for watching our video on the flipped classroom model of blended learning. In this video we're going to take a closer look at the flipped classroom model, and in doing so we're going to start to understand how to incorporate this model into your classroom. A flipped classroom is defined by having students view content with an online delivery method usually done at home. And that's the strange part for teachers who are new to this idea. Then the students participate in face-to-face guided practice or group projects while they're in class. In other words, and this is the reason it's called a flipped classroom, what has been traditionally done in school is now completed at home, and what has been done at home now happens in school where the teacher can assist. The thinking behind this is that a lot of times we spend our whole day while students are in school pushing mountains and mountains of content, and then students go home where they're supposed to practice that content in their homework, but if they can't and they struggle, then they don't get anything out of that. They don't get the reinforcement of that content, which is more important. So with a flipped classroom, they view the content at home, and then when they're in school, they practice. So if they need assistance from the teacher is there to help. You might remember this visual from Module 1, which just kind of summarizes, again, how a flipped classroom works. When students are in school, that's when they're doing all their practicing, all their projects and group work. And then at home is where they're viewing content via online methods. Let's first talk about this idea of students viewing content at home. That's the uncomfortable part for most teachers who are new to this. We're so used to thinking that we are the deliverers of content and we have all this knowledge and no one else has it, and we have to distribute that to our students. But that's not necessarily true these days with the internet and cell phones and everything else. Our students have access to all the content we're teaching them all the time anyway, so they don't really need to receive that anymore at the school building. So when they view content at home, you're just kind of taking advantage of that and then using the school building for a more valuable purpose that we are actually needed. Now there's lots of ways you can deliver content to your students when they're at home. Some popular ones are by watching videos. These are videos that you can create, and we'll show you how to do that later in the module. If you don't want to do that, there's tons of other great videos already created by teachers around the world and country that you can find online on YouTube or any other video website. Your students can complete tutorials, again, created by you or that you've already found online. You can simply have a student read an online article. That counts as viewing content through an online method. You can have your students view and play with interactive simulations. This usually applies more to the math and science world, but there are some interactive simulations with history and other subjects. You can also simply have your students view websites or complete a web quest before they come to class the next day. It's also important to mention that all these different options of online content are shared with your students and monitored by you using the learning management system that your school employs. In the case of Hopewell, of course, that would be OnCourse. So now the question becomes, if the students are viewing content at home, what do they do when they're back in school? Well, when they're in school, and this is the real benefit of a flipped classroom, that's when they participate in the guided practice, almost similar to what their homework used to be, except now the teacher is there for that practice, so you can really observe what your students can and cannot do in a much more valuable way than before. It's also a great opportunity to give students more time to work on group and individual projects, because now you don't have to teach them anything before they participate in the project. They've already viewed that content on their own time. Formative assessments, of course, because you want to gauge your students' understanding of the content they viewed. Station activities. You can kind of combine this with the station rotation model, where the students view content at home the night before and then come in and participate in a rotation through a bunch of different learning stations. Also, any other kind of research, if you're in a science class, any sort of labs and experimentation, all based on the content viewed the night before. That concludes our video on the flipped classroom model. Thank you for watching. Please enjoy our summary. Now go out and blend something.